on your eyes, that's for sure.
Extremely hard on the eyes. Yep.
Yeah, I just learned today in a computer class that you can, and this is new to me, I'm obviously showing I don't get the whole thing, but where you can change the blue light for the evenings, so you're not getting as much blue light on your screen.
Your phone has that. You can turn it down.
Yes, I did know my phone did, but I didn't think about the computer, you know, because I don't usually use the laptop in the evening.
My last years with Great Northern, you know, it's all I ever did was clerical work on the computer. And I was in triple progressive glasses. I'd have a special range just for the computer because of the distance.
You had to
Eyes would get
have an awful lot, Louis. You were awfully agreeable.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll get started anyway. There's only 2 members here.
Well, that's
could not be here. She's late due to it being extremely busy down there. But she did leave a statement for me, which I'll read once we get to it. I'll try to do the 4th of July stuff last of the old business. That way, if people struggling, they'll still have a chance to comment. I'll start with the mission statement, and I'll share that right now. We did talk about it last time we met. We kind of finalized it. There were some committee members that weren't here for this. Tom and Kitty weren't here. So Tom, this is what we came up with for a mission statement. I think it's nice. I think it hits all the things that we want to do. Oh, look, another person joined. So basically, this is what we were thinking for the events committee. No, you're fine.
Hello.
So the events committee of Millinocket is dedicated to bringing together the citizens of Millinocket and guests to enjoy a variety of events throughout the year in order to boost community spirits with a goal of 1 event per month. Louis, I don't think you were here last time, and I know you weren't here, Tom. Do you guys have any recommendations? Peter, you weren't here either for this, so if you have something to say, just go ahead and jump in. But this is what we got out of the last meeting.
My only thoughts to that is you're tying yourself to 1 event a month. Sometimes that may be hard to do.
Yeah, you could just add the word at least 1 event a month. Kind of leaves it open-ended that way.
Saying you'll have 1 every month.
Well, that's what it says, a final goal. You know, this isn't something that's obviously going to happen in the course of a year. You know, this is probably going to take 4 or 5 years to finally accomplish. So this is more of a strategic plan mission statement that's dedicated to like 5 years from now. It's not just going to happen this year. You know, we would like that.
As long as people, that's the only thing. As long as people understand, I mean, we're going to try to do that.
Right. Yeah. And that's why
Maybe all it is a jam session at the dance.
Exactly. So a couple of people came to me after the events committee meeting last time from the public and said they really liked the idea of the mission statement. And 2 people had said in Florida, something to do is called Festive Friday. And it happens at the end of the month. They do it at the last day of the month. They have an event on every Friday, whether it be something simple like you said, where it be a dance or it be something community driven. But there was still an event once a month to get people in town to come together.
Like somebody,
that was kind of a cool
like some musicians.
What was that?
Some musicians to do find some musicians to do a jam session or something.
Yeah, exactly. It doesn't need to be anything massive. It could just be something small. So I think it's easily attainable. Definitely, I think this year we should work on the bigger events and kind of spruce this up now that COVID's kind of going by the wayside at a slow pace, but still work on the bigger events and getting them back up to speed. So yeah, a goal of at least 1 event per month.
Yeah, that looks great.
Suggestions?
That's
Is that
fine.
directed at me?
Yeah.
Nitpicky thing.
Oh,
All right.
Twofer.
I don't necessarily have any
Steve?
suggestions.
Yeah, I mean, it could even be just pared down a little bit more. Obviously to make guests plural, is just a silly thing. Millinocket and guests. Um,
You said Earl, is that what you said?
But
add an
I don't
F.
know what you'd want to pare down on it.
Could you hear me over Louis talking?
No.
No, no. Did you say something?
You're saying enough for all three of us here, Louis. Add an S at the end of guest is all I was saying. Whether in order to boost community spirit with a goal of at least one event per month. Yeah, I mean, that's fine.
Sarah?
No, you just picked up on, I was gonna say, my nitpicky idea was the guests as well. I think it sounds fine, and either that, or you could say, if there were some months that you didn't want one per month, I think it's a great goal, but maybe so many per year, then it stretches it out. Some months may have two, some months may have not, no event at the time, but.
True. I definitely think leaving it open to one a month, because like you said, there's obviously going to be some months we do more than one.
Mhm.
But ultimately, like I said, I'd like to see one thing happen. Like the snowmobile parade, for example, happens during either, November, December, or January. It's in between months. So if we do it once there, bam, that's the event for the month. Obviously more can happen, or like the snow down could be considered one, I guess. Just
Well, yeah, after you, that makes more sense. That way, that we either have it, the events committee puts it on, or we sponsor an event
exactly. Yeah.
by somebody else doing an event, but we're a part of it. Yeah, good idea. Yeah.
So, right. So the next thing on the agenda.
And Matt, I would personally just take everything out throughout the year. It's fine if you want to mention boosting community spirit, but obviously the impacts would be much greater than that too. It would bring in economic development. It would bring new people to the region. I don't know if it's really worth mentioning. That's just my feeling. Bring events throughout the year. I think would be fine just ending there, but that's just my thought.
What do you think?
I'm fine with it
Okay, so you said delete everything after.
throughout the year.
Yeah. I mean, I think the benefits of having events throughout the year are pretty obvious. And I don't think it's only about boosting community spirit, obviously. I think it's about economic development, attracting new people, having a variety of different, options, opportunities, whatever. That's just my thought. Not that I have anything against boosting community spirit, obviously.
No, I think it's short and sweet and to the point. So I think that's fine too.
Yeah.
Anybody else?
I agree. The word enjoy kind of encompasses what you just took out.
Okay, perfect. Right. Yeah, there's enough here for that, right? All right, so the next item on the agenda is going to be, out of the 400 documents I have pulled up. The next thing on the list is talking about the event sign. So I'm still working on that. Now that we have a CID, I plan on meeting with her at some point, hopefully Monday or Tuesday or the following week, to discuss trying to get some funds together and pin down an exact location. I know we talked about a couple of spots, including in front of the municipal building, but I'd like to get some funding before we actually, start talking about where we want to put it. But that is still being worked on. The volunteer list, same with that, it's still kind of in the development phase. What I showed you guys last time, the programming is still kind of being worked on. I'm trying to get it so it like goes immediately to the website, but I'm trying to work on things in the background for that before I present anything else on that. The plan is to still have a list. That way any committee can pull forward from it, or for any committee or the council for that matter, for events throughout the town or any project that needs to be done. That way we have a set list. I'm also trying to find a way to delete old contacts without having to go through it once a year, whether it be sending out a mass email to everybody once or twice a year saying, hey, are you still interested in volunteering? If they click no, it takes their name automatically off the list. So I'm still trying to work out that part as well. Any questions on those two things? Steve?
The list that you mentioned, would it be possible, which I think is a great idea, would it be possible if it's all digital, for there to be specific types of volunteer categories, basically, that someone can volunteer for? So for example, if someone's maybe physically limited, there might be other types of volunteer opportunities for them versus others.
So basically the list, the original design is that when you signed up for this list, it would send you an email with events that were coming up that they needed help for. And basically it would be a call and response. You know, you click yes, you want to volunteer. And then we were talking about adding time slots to it, which is kind of tricky, but we can do it. But if you didn't want to participate, like you had a physical element that you weren't able to participate, whether it involved building, getting up on ladders, XYZ, you could just say no to that particular event. There was also some suggestions on putting interest. That way you could put like, I'm interested in not doing seasonal events. I'm interested in doing seasonal events. I'm not interested in getting wet. I'm interested in getting wet, you know, all those things. That is an option. However, I think a simple call and response is the easiest way out of this. That way, if you have an ailment, you can just put no, I don't want to participate in that event. Or if you're busy, both would give the same answer.
Yeah, that makes sense. I was just thinking more if you started spanning it town-wide, like you mentioned, you know, because there could be some company or something that would specifically be happy to volunteer or donate for one type of thing that maybe fits their industry. Like Scott's company, for example, might have resources or volunteers for anything relating to gardening, but otherwise don't really want to receive emails for other stuff. I was just thinking if it's expanded like that, just to have that thought in mind.
That'd be a lot more coding involved in programming, but it's definitely a possibility. Like I said, it's still in baby phase. I'm trying to work out some kinks before I present it again, but I'll definitely keep that in mind for when I push it forward.
I appreciate that, Matt. Thanks.
I think Matt, you're Councilor Bragdon, you're talking about coding and creating. I think this can be done pretty simply with Constant Contact, and it's something that I've used in the past that I want to incorporate into the town for newsletters and surveys and you know, email lists and you know, you can do these surveys and sign up lists right from there. You can just you know, check a few boxes, type a short narrative and create it and send it out. You can embed it on our website or on our social media. I mean, it's really simple stuff, and I think it covers everything we're looking at here.
I've never heard of it personally, but yeah, I mean, if it's one of the less thing for me to do, absolutely.
Well, I'm just thinking we used it. I used it in the Chamber of Commerce, and I mean, it was a great program. You could do all kinds of stuff in it. It's very inexpensive and it's extremely user friendly. So I think maybe stop by and we can explore it.
I plan on stopping by Monday or Tuesday anyway, so we can talk about it then.
Mhm.
And that will save a ton of time and effort. So what about the event sign? Any comments or questions on that?
I just want to make sure that we stay with the route that Amber's direction comes from me. So I want to make sure there's that buffer there. And then I want to, there was one part that you mentioned, you know, solidifying the funding before the location, but I think in the way that many grant applications work, we would want to have the plan drawn out very specifically before we
Right, so we had
apply for funds for the project.
the last meeting, which I believe you were there, we pinned it down to 2 spots. So really it's between 2 spots that are both owned by the town. However, we wanted to solidify talking to Amber, well, before Amber was Amber, We wanted to solidify having a CID because there were talks about there being an issue with us raising money and setting up a GoFundMe. So we were told to wait, which me and you did speak about prior. So now that that position is in place, again, I plan on coming in and talking to you and possibly Amber.
Perfect. I'm sure we can come up with a plan.
Brittany?
Yeah, apologies because I don't know a lot of the backstory on this, but I know that the chamber obviously needs a new sign. Has there been any communication between town or the events committee and the chamber and potentially collaborating on getting a sign there? Obviously, yes, I see your faces.
I tried several times to communicate with the chamber and I followed up 4 times and never received a call back. And I know that that land out in front, I believe I was informed it's owned by the town. But I wanted to talk to them first about it. And when I called, I got no response back.
Just for information, with the whole thing belongs to town,
Right.
except for the building. All that land is town.
But I didn't want to cooperate with them and talk to them before. If they had something else in the works, you know, I didn't want to step on any feet and, you know, just put a sign up there without talking to them first. But again, they never called me back. So the next idea was putting it in front of the municipal building and cutting that shrubbery down that's currently behind Peter's head.
Yeah, that shrubbery's coming out of here as soon as possible.
I'm thinking that would be an excellent place for that, because not only could we put events, but if there was something special that the town was trying to put out, or Peter had a message he wanted to put out, we could put it on that same board.
You're talking about at the chamber building itself?
No, down in front of the town office itself.
Yeah, or even out towards in Millinocket Heritage Park would be maybe even Plaza.
We had talked about that. There were some concerns with traffic.
Mhm.
So the final 2 places we pinned down were the municipal building and the chamber.
I will share that I spent a lot of time at that location in the past, and more often than not, the reaction to the sign that was there is like this. They notice it as they've passed it and go, "What was that?"
Right.
So
That was
take
also
that into consideration.
That was also brought up. The reason why that spot was recommended was because it was the first point of entry into town. You know, if somebody decides to come into town and they don't go down Penobscot Ave, then they don't see the sign. They'd see it if they came into town. Because that's one of the only entrances into town, unless you're taking the Brownville Road.
It's a great point.
Thought process behind that. However, you were right. You know, people speed by that going 35, 40 miles an hour, and they're just going to zip right by it. You know, versus like the one in Lincoln, it's right at the stop sign. You can read it while you sit there and wait for the light to turn green. The Medway one's kind of out on the highway, but they have that slow zone, so it's kind of convenient, kind of not. I thought the municipal building was a good pick, simply because you're driving down the street. It's a slow drive. It's a one-way, so we wouldn't need a double-face sign. So we'd save some money there, and it would spruce up the front of the building. I know we had several complaints about the paper on the glass, the event sign, the big board out front not being up to date. It was just a way to counteract multiple arguments by one solution. So basically, we'd be hitting multiple birds with one stone. All right. So the last thing on old business is basically the recommendation to the council. So let me share my screen again. So this is the drafted order. I do have the write-up here, the recommendation that talks about all the meetings that we discussed this. So these are all the meeting dates, votes. We don't have enough people here to vote other than me, Tom, and the manager. So we can definitely take a vote today. We are missing 3 people, which is unfortunate. But this is the second attempt at me trying to get everybody together to push this forward. And I really need to get this done sooner than later. Because we have another recommendation that we're supposed to be sending to the council that I'm currently drafting. And I'd like to get this one done first before I do the next one. Louis?
I'm just curious, you mentioned committee members. Am I on the committee or not? I thought we talked about it at one point, but nothing's ever happened.
I am not positive. I know it's me, the manager, Tom, Kitty, Elissa, and Mike Fedor. Was there ever an order passed for Louis to be on the events committee? Do you know, Peter?
No, you and Mike are the only counselors on there. I know, I think I had heard that Mike had expressed disinterest, maybe, if that's the mild way of putting it, on being on the committee after receiving some feedback, maybe.
He spoke to me and told me he had no time in his schedule to come to the event committee meetings. And I have not heard anything from Kitty. She has told me she's been coming or wanted to come the last 3 times that I haven't seen her.
Well, we can make revisions and or additions to committee appointments at any time. So Louis, if you're interested in being a committee member, that can certainly be on the agenda for upcoming council meeting, and to remove Mike.
Sure. I wouldn't mind being on it if you know, you don't have the number of council members that can be on it.
So Matt, if that's all right with you, I can get that.
That's
added.
fantastic. Louis been giving me pretty positive feedback, you know, in and out of the meetings. So I think that's a great addition.
Well, thank you, Louis, for being willing.
So the origins of the background of the whole project, which we've been talking about since December, is right there. And then the actual order is right there. So I don't know what order number it's going to be. Peter, this is what I was talking to you about with the account numbers and everything. I don't have that right off, but all those can obviously be inserted right as it is. I don't know how you guys feel about the order. I did tell, I believe it was Tom or Peter, I can't remember. Frank is going to be a separate line item than recall. Frank is trying to find who exactly we're going to be giving the money to, and that can easily be inserted as well. He thinks it's Mr. Neto, but he wanted to check and get back with me before we made any final judgments on that.
The one recommendation I have, Matt, would be that instead of saying hire Frank Manzo, we say we're hiring FSM Enterprises. Like in the providing for as well. His business, what he DJs and runs sound under, is called FSM Enterprises.
Better?
You also may want to reach out to Mary Alice to identify which account the funds will be taken out of, if you haven't already.
He mentioned that a moment ago. With
Oh, you did? Sorry.
Yeah.
I was sending an email to Diana for the order. Okay.
Oh, and then on it is therefore ordered, just Frank Manzo again.
Steve, there is an account that we raised some money and it's in an account for the events committee.
Okay, yeah,
I don't know the number off my head, but I've got it in my office too.
yeah, that makes sense.
I know the budget line number. Well, I don't know, not off the top of my head. I could find it, but the actual account number to be inserted in the order, we'd have to get from Mary Alice.
Both Frank and Melissa sent me comments they wanted to be read tonight. Frank says, thank you to everyone for all you do, and know it's long, arduous process to plan these events, and will very little in it with any recognition. You all rock, and you're all stars in my book. Lissa said, we made a good choice by picking Frank and supporting someone from town, especially one of those doing this for a while. I'm really excited to have a live band playing during this event. It will attract a lot of people, and I know that a lot of people are looking forward to having a big 4th of July event this year. I also believe that having such a big event will bring town morale up due to the COVID. A lot of people have suffered loss, pain, and just overwhelming overwhelming amount of depression. So I'm really happy to bring some happiness to the townspeople in visiting Forest. So she is in support of this. She cannot be here tonight. She had to stay late for work, but she does support this order. Now,
So $600 is for recall. When are they gonna play?
July 3rd, music entertainment on July 3rd. Frank's gonna play Saturday, and
Okay.
he'll play after and before recall does too.
Yep.
There was some talks about getting a couple of other bands. Some businesses had expressed interest in sponsoring bands for the 4th of July, so that is also a possibility, but finding bands that are still willing to perform for that weekend is getting particularly difficult.
And as I said, we in the past, we've had like a jam session behind the high school before the fireworks. And it didn't cost, I mean, I think we gave like $50 or $100 to these 2 or 3 bands, you know, young bands, kids. Not always went over very, very well.
Right. I mean, I'd love to do it. I don't know if any, the Recall is the only band and one other band that I know that are in town. I don't know of any others. That's the things. I'm not familiar with any of those. So that'd be a question for Frank.
Maybe a Frank, yeah,
Yeah.
Frank would know.
And I'm sure he said he'd be willing to look for other bands too, and would send me information. So I mean, after this is submitted, maybe he'll bring forth a couple of other people that are interested, or maybe even some young people that want to, you know, do something. I know there's a couple of kids at Stearns that play guitar and play drums. Maybe they'll get together and want to do something.
And the other thing that we need to do right off soon too is we'll have to get approval to expend the funds for the Shriner groups before we end up losing.
Mike was supposed to be on
I
top of
know,
that,
so.
and he never told me anything.
So we've got to follow up on that with those groups and make sure.
So did he
Yes.
get one
We've
reserved?
got 2, supposedly we have 2 of them reserved, but I know those groups, if you don't pay them ahead, they'll move on. So
No, he said something about last year paying, that we had paid for them or something, and where it got canceled, that,
we had the money to pay. We didn't
Okay.
pay it. We didn't pay any. The only thing we paid for last year, and that's a complete separate, is fireworks. That's its own account, so.
now how do we do this, Steve, where there's only 3 of us that are actually members here, and we had one person send in support for this? Do I do,
As long as you have, there doesn't need to be the full committee, as long as you have even 2 or 3 or whatever.
And the majority of that group.
Yeah, the
votes in
majority of
favor.
whoever's here. And then, you know, also the public comment or the public input as well will speak to what everyone else is thinking as well.
perfect. So official vote. I think it's great. So there's, all 3 of us have said yes. So I guess we'll continue to move this forward, and it will be on the next council agenda, hopefully. As for everything else for the 4th of July, things are still moving forward. The color run, I still haven't heard anything else about. As far as I know, that's still the plan. But the contact that was here the last time hasn't said anything else, so I'm assuming it's still a go. The adults versus kids football game, I have found a lot of support for that, and I found 2 people to possibly coach. I'm just trying to get an absolute yes or no before we do anything with that. As we talked about last time, the craft fair / vendor fair, I have 6 people that are willing to come up and do this already. And they've told me that they know several other people that want to come up and do this. So there is tons of support for vendors to come up here and line the main street and sell their wares. I don't know if you guys want to talk about that now. If you want to wait, we're technically new business, but there's a ton of support to do that craft fair. Any comments? Louis?
Sounds like it'd be a good thing to do in conjunction with other events.
So the only question I really have before I draft an order to have part of the main street closed off, is a fee. This year I was really thinking about not doing a fee just to get the vendors back up here and interested in coming to us. I know that years prior, there used to be a huge thing that happened in Veterans Park where there was a fee. And it kind of fell off due to loss of interest. I think if we do no fee this year and we offer slots along the main street, it's going to entice people to come up here. And when they see how big this event's going to be and how many people are here, it will entice them to come back. And then later we could do a $10, $20 fee to reserve a slot. But basically this first year would be to get their foot in the door and see how much people are going to be interested in this event. So how do you guys feel about a fee?
Well, I'm fine with not charging a fee. They're gonna buy, they're still gonna have to get a peddler's license.
Most of the people that are that want to do it, they already have peddler's license for.
From Millinocket.
Yeah. I stop on Peddler's Hill every time I go by and I see them and I talk to them.
Oh, so, yeah,
There's a couple that don't. So like I called some vendors from Patton that I had contacts with that expressed they'd be interested in doing it. So the only fee they'd have to pay is that licensing fee.
because we have to have that because we have to have their tax ID or how, you know, we have to make sure that we're covering the town as far as the tax IDs go.
Right. Like I said, most of them have it, and the ones that don't, I will definitely inform that they need it.
The only thing that I see in that whole thing is food vendors. I mean, you know, if you bring in food vendors in and they want to be down in the bandstand, you know, we're gonna pay the electricity.
Right.
I don't know what you've got lined up for.
I don't know of any food vendors yet,
Okay.
but that is a very good question. There is a seafood vendor who has talked about possibly coming, but he didn't say about needing electricity or not. And I thought I had asked the question, but
He's probably the same one that does it on Peddler's Hill, and he has his own gas thing that he
generator.
he has gas like propane stove that he uses to cook lobsters.
Oh, okay. Yep.
Every time there's been vendors downtown for anything, they usually have their own generators or their own fuel for stuff. It's really just basically Daigle's that had the power hooked up to their own meter. But other than that, basically everyone else is pretty self-contained. So I'm assuming people who have trailers or trucks or whatever for this, you know, already have that kind of equipment where it wouldn't be a problem.
Right.
Well, no, Steve, but the ones that we usually get want to hook up to our 220 down there. They set where the hot dog cart used to set.
What does the Blue Ox do? Does he run off his own or?
He's completely separate. He's all, you know, him and Scooter, if they do anything, they'll be on their own.
Okay.
But we used to get all the time, we used to get two of them that wanted to be, one would be on Main Street, the other one would be in the first parking spot there, that would use our 220.
Are you talking about for the 4th?
Yes.
Yeah.
So
How much does that cost in power usually? What's the difference?
I don't really know, Steve. We've never figured out what it actually cost us.
Yeah.
We used to charge them $50, but I don't know if we ever figured out what it costs.
Maybe we could add something in there. I'm gonna draft it up and bring it.
But
to the
that's
next meeting.
it's entirely up to you, the council to.
Right. I mean, if they do an electric hookup, I can't imagine that $50 is gonna be much, but I really don't know.
Food vendors.
No. I do know Scudic is they're doing their cornhole thing the same day, so I know they're doing stuff outside.
And if the boys are here, they usually have their cotton candy machine out, but it all comes whether his boys are home or not.
Right.
And Tommy will set his thing up on the sidewalk like he always does.
Right. And I am gonna set up a Google Forms registration, which we'll talk about at the next meeting once I have it done. That way we know who's coming.
Yeah.
And I can put a message or a question on there if they need an electric hookup. Then we can know from there how many vendors are actually gonna need one or not, or if they have ones, if they're supplying their own generator. So I can definitely put that as a question on the draft registration before we we talked about putting it out. As for a flyer, I'm gonna have Alyssa, she already expressed interest in doing one. She's gonna drop a flyer for the 3 days. The Alumni Association, which I was hoping Kitty would be here tonight, has told me they have several things in the work, but I don't know what any of them are. So I've spoken with 3 people from the Alumni Association, and I'm waiting for Michael Crowley to get back to me. But I guess they have some ideas and some collaboration that they want to join in on as well. The chamber also expressed interest in doing some stuff, but again, I have yet to hear back from them. Any other questions about the 4th of July or anything related to the 4th? Okay. So next on the agenda. My computer just froze. Are you guys still there?
Yes, sir.
I don't know what just happened. Okay, well, the next thing we're going to talk about is fall events. So we had talked about doing a potluck, which the council, the majority of the council wanted to wait due to COVID. I think it's a good time to talk about doing it again, whether it be this June, July, or even in the fall, about doing one either before the council meeting or just in general. This could be playing into the one event per month thing that we had talked about. But I think it needs to be done sooner rather than later. I just think it's a good way to get the community together. Any comments on a potluck? Steve?
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was a great idea from the beginning. I think it's another, you're talking about a potluck before the council meeting or just in general?
Before or after? I mean, we can do it just in general if the council's not in favor of it, but I definitely think we should be doing one regardless if the council finds it favorable or not.
I think being that we are, as we are in such a formal environment and obviously have to go through such a formal process, it makes it a little bit harder, in my opinion, for maybe residents in the community to feel welcome in that kind of environment. I think we should try everything we can to not only welcome people to the council meeting itself, but also to create a welcoming environment between councilors and the community in general. So people can ask questions and talk about things and socialize and really make it a community event rather than a, basically a court process is what it feels like to a lot of people. Like I said, we can't do anything about that. It's a formal process that we have to adhere to, but I'm all for it.
Louis?
Yeah, just on a different idea, I was thinking about a fall event like trick or treating's been Halloween's been kind of taken out of the streets basically, and in the school or in front of the fire station kind of thing. I thought it might be nice if you had a little parade just up and down the main street or up to the main street to Veterans Park for the kids.
I think you froze, Louis. I don't know if you can hear me or not.
Kids to show off their costumes thing. And
You froze through half of that, so we only heard like a quarter of your speech, but I'll talk about that more in just a minute because I do have a couple ideas for Halloween. I think it's a very underrated holiday that could definitely be used to a municipality's advantage. So I'll talk about that in just a minute. But the potluck, is there any other questions about that before we end that discussion? Because I would like to start talking about doing this within the next month or two. I just, like Steve said, I think it's a great way to get people tied together and bring more people to the council meetings. It will entice people to come and not be so afraid of quote unquote the court feeling. So is there any other comments on that before we move on?
Nothing constructive, just in agreement. I think it's a great idea, and I think it definitely gives the opportunity to remove those barriers of the staunch formal setting of a council meeting, but to be more relaxed and approachable. I think it'll go a long way. I hope.
So would we do this right in the chamber, or could we do it in the parking lot? What would be the best approach for doing a potluck like this? Louis?
Yeah. Personally, I think the courtroom is not a good venue, given part of the intimidation factor that you're talking about is the you being up on a dais, up there looking down on people kind of thing. I think any venue that would have everybody on the same level would be a lot more approachable.
Steve?
If we did it in the courtroom, we wouldn't be sitting up there. Presumably, it would be all of us integrating in just that space. I would imagine that maybe some tables can be set up in the hallway with food and people can bring it in. That way, there's places for people to sit, but when the meeting starts, there's not all the food right there. Basically, that has to be cleared out and everything. It's really out in the hallway. Kind of creates that separation. That's what I had in my mind anyway.
I think that's a great idea.
I would very much recommend that it doesn't take place upstairs, but I think the hallway is a great idea. I think the hallway on this floor and maybe with the manager's office door open, but having food in the hallway and people mingling out there. My thought is that there's a lot of carpet and a lot of surfaces upstairs, and our building custodian is in charge of cleaning all of that. And if there are mistakes, it makes his job, that much more time consuming. For example, our last council meeting lasted until almost 9 o'clock at night. And then he came back and we had to clean the entire room and set it back up for court so that they could start at 8 a.m. So I'm just thinking in terms of operations of this building, it would be much more convenient to do it on a floor where everything's just a wipeable surface.
It's a good idea. Another recommendation that was brought by Sharon Decker, who is not here with us tonight, had recommended doing like a grill session in the parking lot. So that was another option too, is someone bringing a grill, which I'm more than happy to do if it comes down to that, and grilling out in the parking lot, or even on the side of the building, and people bring drinks, food. It's going to be a potluck, but there'd be grilling involved too, hot dogs. So that is another option as well. And if anything spills outside, it's less of a worry than if it spills inside.
Is this something that could this happen in like the pocket park between Randy's building and the town office? There's already some seating, some tables could be set up. It's outdoors. There's the little awning that has the info board on it. So it could just be an introduction to whatever resources are there.
Thank you.
Very good idea, Brittany.
I think it's a great idea. I also would just want to point out how great Tom and his grill are for situations like that. He's got a great big grill.
Sounds like volunteering.
And I was waiting, but I think, if you want to do it like in the park or somewhere, that's fine. But we can also clean the fire station up.
Oh, it's a good option too. And it gets people into
And
the
then we get them
building.
inside. I can show them how bad it really is.
Oh, boy.
Hey. But
Birds on stone.
but I'm just saying if you had weather or something,
Yeah. Perfect.
So I think we got plenty of options. And the grill's right there.
So do we need a council order for this if we're using municipality property, or do we?
Not necessarily, no. We just need basically general approval from us in a discussion or something. We don't really need a permit to do any of that. The council will just have to generally agree to, well, I guess if the events committee wants to put it on as a committee event, then it really wouldn't be a council issue, especially if it's in the side park. Then the committee would need approval from the council. If it's a council thing, then I feel we can just do it.
Is this something that would be best handled by including in a manager's report about this committee meeting and the discussion and seek some additional feedback?
I think it would be easier if it came from a council level than a committee level. That way we're not proposing drafts and having multiple meetings to discuss this. We could just simply do it from the council level. So maybe it'd be best just to put it on a manager's report and have a general discussion about it.
I think that makes the most sense.
Sweet, awesome. Yeah, I'd love to talk more about this at the next meeting too. But I definitely think this should be on the manager's report for next time. I want this to be a reoccurring thing. I don't want it to be like a one and done. I want this to continue. That way we can entice more people to come. And I think a grill out session with Tom would be fantastic. So perfect. So Halloween. So my idea for Halloween, and there's been tons of discussions behind it. I went and talked up to a few people on Mass Ave that had done a ton of decorations, thousands of dollars in decorations and lights. And I had asked them, how would you feel about possibly a prize pool of $250 for first prize, $100 for second place, and $50 for third place? And they said that they would probably pour more money into their decorations if that happened. So there were discussions about possibly doing a prize pool. There were two businesses that I had spoken with privately last year, and I was just going to do it individually. But I thought it'd be a good idea for the events committee to put on and do a parade like Louis had suggested down the main street, maybe even doing something in Veterans Park, like a hay bale festival, and do a best costume thing for the kids. Getting the schools involved, let them get out early one day, you know, it's something along the lines of doing something for the kids. I just think it's a really underwhelming event that could easily be used to benefit the municipality and tie into, you know, a great event that could happen at the park and bring people together. So right now is the time to talk about this, and, you know, within the next 2 months, we can really start hitting it on the head and planning. But I think it's a great time to discuss how you guys feel about it.
My only comment is that if there is a prize, that it be to a local restaurant or a local store. I don't know how the chamber set up those gift cards to use within the region, but I think that's more, I think that would be better than just having a cash prize.
That was Bangor Savings that did that for the chamber, and I think that's a great idea as well. I know plenty of businesses that would be willing to do something along the lines of that, or even donate gift cards just to be a part of it. Like I said, there were two private businesses that were interested in doing it. I can only imagine how many more want to. So maybe even communicating with Bangor Savings and saying, hey, if we did this, you know, could we get those cards that were given to the chamber? That way all the money goes right back into local businesses.
Can I just clarify something quick about that? The 3 times that stimulus project was held, it was at my direction. There was one of those 3 was with the Bangor Savings buy local card, the Bowie local cards. It's a much more, it's a slimmer pickings than the generic gift certificate that we did the other couple of times. The business has to be signed up and involved in that program in order to use that card there. And there's, you know, some other elements to it. It was a great program. Don't get me wrong. There's that program, that buy local deal is great. I still have my card. But there was a much more limited amount of local businesses that were able to be supported via that program than there were when we did the generic community stimulus gift card. Gift certificate version of it.
So we could probably still reach out to local businesses and see if they want to donate some form of a gift card. I mean, that's another way around it. So it's supporting local, not unless anybody else has another idea. Okay.
Well, having been involved in this concept since it started with with Halloween. When the town first got involved with Halloween, as far as, you know, having places where we were doing it instead of the streets. We actually, one year, the Nazarene Church does a big one every year. They do a trunk or treat, what they call it. And the first year that we got involved, we tried to do one down behind Stearns High School. It kind of flopped. The next year we did it at the fire station, moved everything out and did it there. But last year we closed Summer Street between Aroostook and Katahdin, Aroostook and Penobscot. And we had cars lined up on both sides of the street. That went over very, very well. We had over 500 kids. So, I mean, there's a lot of opportunity there. I think we still need to, as an events committee, we still need to sponsor the Nazarene Church because they'll still be doing theirs. But we can entice it by doing other things.
Absolutely.
So,
And it sounds like there's obviously interest to do.
Oh,
There was
there's-
over 500 kids. There's obviously interest.
yeah, kids come from everywhere.
I know there was discussions about, someone had asked, because the lady had done the cemetery up on Mass Ave, someone had said, well, why don't they do it up on Mass Ave? Why don't you do it on Highland Ave? You know, the typical comments. So Veterans Park was kind of a middle ground that I thought was fair, you know, it's.
We actually looked at doing it at the, last year, we actually talked to the pastor at the Faith Baptist Church about doing it in his parking lot. But they kind of do something there themselves for the kids that are going Mass Avenue. So we really didn't want to go in and encroach on what he was trying to do as well. So but Veterans Park or the municipal parking lot across from the town office.
Yep.
It's also a good place to.
That's good. And it gets people right on Main Street too. So if local businesses want to do something, they can.
Right.
Any other comments or suggestions before we move on? Sweet. So that's a couple of ideas. Just keep it in the back of your mind for when we meet next time. We can talk about it more. Like I said, I just want to get a lot of ideas in and before we start finalizing anything. But it's great to hear that there's interest. So I'm very happy to hear that. That's really it. Next meeting time and date. I know you guys like to keep it after 4. 4 is really the best time for the library. It gives us an hour to work with before they close, which we're almost at an hour now. So I think this is perfect. I don't know if you guys want to keep meeting at 4 or not. I'm going to reach out to some of the other members because apparently a doodle poll did not work out as well as I thought it was going to. So I think I'll have to just make the rounds by phone call in order to get answers from people. But is everybody still good at meeting after 4 o'clock? Is there any concerns? Should I push it later and try to find another place? Or is this perfect? Perfect, okay. So let's shoot for the first of the month. I'll send out an agenda as soon as I know more. And we'll probably meet again in person. Hopefully we'll get a little bit more people to show up next time. But that's really all I got.
Can I bring up one more thing before we
Yeah.
go? I'd like to see, and the events committee didn't do it last year. We talked about it. We talked about it 2 years. Jeff does a car show, air show at the airport. I think the events committee should get involved in that in some fashion.
Absolutely.
To help Jeff up there. I mean, the fire department goes up and cooks burgers and stuff, but I think there's other things that we can do to help entice that, especially with the emphasis we're trying to put on the airport and make it more visible and I guess consumer friendly or however you want to word that.
Absolutely. No, I think that's a great
Just
idea.
put that on our radar.
Peter?
I'd also like to throw out the potential of providing some level of support to the Trails End Festival after the forced separation from the Chamber of Commerce. That group is they're very much in a rebuilding year, and I think that they could use some support, either organizationally or financially, even when it comes to the insurance. I don't have specifics at this point, but I would like to keep it on our radar that we can support in some way or another.
It's a great idea, and we have the perfect contact now, that Cody's part of it, so.
And that's what I mentioned.
Part of it since day one.
I mentioned that to the committee too. You know, if the events committee kind of folded that into that as part of, you know, we're supporting it, we're sponsoring it, we're a supporter of it. We could use the town insurance will cover it. And we've done that for other events and things to keep, you know, because if they have to go out and buy their own insurance, it's very expensive.
I'll talk with Cody and see possibly about doing that, because I mean, I would love to support them in any way, shape, or form that we can.
Absolutely.
And the same with Jeff. I think I love car shows, so I think it's a great way to get involved, and maybe we can get a band to play up there. I mean, that will entice people to go out.
I'm just thinking, you know, if we could do something just to kind of,
I'll have a conversation with Jeff and find out what exactly he's looking for and see if we can help in any way.
so I don't think he's looking for anything, so I think anything we offer, he'll be thrilled with, so.
Right. No, I think that's a fantastic idea. Any other comments or suggestions about anything before we end? All right,
Cool, he's got something, he's smiling there, he's got something.
Gleave's got something because he's smiling. Is that true? You gonna offer to grill? No? Okay, well, I tried.
Grilling is for Tom.
Tom's grilling.
Tom, I'll have you flex your schedule that week. So
You got some rabbits you want us to?
All right,
All right.
all right, thank you, everybody.